Remember the big battle? The NFL was saying, don't show up. Everybody stay away. Then yesterday I saw a rap sheet said the Dolphins had 70 players at OTAs, the result of a negotiation between the players and Coach Brian Flores to lower the exertion level. Accordingly, players showed up to learn. I did not know OTAs had very high exertion levels, but the players wanted lower exertion levels. They got lower exertion levels. And it wasn't just the Dolphins. They had 70 guys. Do you know how many guys the Chiefs had at OTAs? 81. 81.
How many guys on the roster? 90?
I mean, if you didn't show, what the hell's your deal? Niners had a bunch of guys show up. Once somebody told me, Jeff Schwartz was telling me that the Browns, I don't know what the Browns deal was. J.C. Treader, you reminded me, the Players Association president or whatever is on their team, doesn't want guys to show up. But I think it's pretty clear who won and who lost. You know who won, John? The guys who showed up and got their bonuses. That's who won.
Well, we were talking about this before we came on, and I think the one thing that's unique about football relative to the other two sports baseball has a really powerful union. If the baseball union said something like this would not have taken place, right? If whatever the equivalent is in baseball, do not show up to spring training, who are the Chiefs equivalent, like the Dodgers or the Yankees, are not getting basically 95% of their roster showing up. That would not happen. Mm-hmm. In basketball, players don't show up even when the union doesn't tell them. They're like, oh, fuck it, I'll just hang out with my buddies. I'll play and I'll see you next week, coach. They're like, okay. They don't even find you. Basketball's in a whole different world. I think in football, last year was real, right? They did virtual. No one knew what was going on. Now, when I saw DeMaurice Smith, fighting for opt-outs this year, it's like, guys, get the fuck out of here. Give me a break. And part of it is I've got to know, lucky enough, just some position coaches, from working with them at Fresno and and with the Eagles. And those guys have very, very close relationships with players. Even sometimes more Andy's unique. He just gets very, very close relationships with his guys. But position coaches, in the sport of football, you are dependent. If that guy is good, that guy can make you a lot of money. You have a unique bond with that guy. I was watching Frank's talk yesterday, Frank Reich. They did the same thing. He's their, I think, union representative is Ryan Kelly, the center, who's the Alabama guy. And DeForest talked yesterday too. And he's like, we just met with him. We just kind of gave some of our opinions. And Frank was like, yeah, I was open to it. I mean, ultimately, I want guys here. We want to help guys out. We're just trying to get better. We're not running junction boys out there, right? You get paid to be here. You get a per diem, and I know it's not, it's $250 a day, but for a guy making $600,000, $4,000 a month or whatever is not nothing, especially in the offseason. In football, you don't get paid in the offseason if you're not like Jimmy and don't have a bonus. Also, a lot of these guys like their coaches. I think sometimes we view the way the media talks it this adversarial relationship between team and player, and that's become a huge thing in the NBA. And I even think if you ask most NBA players, they'd be really close with their assistant coaches. A lot of these relationships, I don't know, are healthy. You're I just like this guy. He's a coach, I'm a player. He's a little older than me. He tells me stories. He helps my life. He makes me a better person. I think sometimes you hear some of these stories about, I think you hear this a lot in relationships. God, I hate my wife. I think a lot of people have really good relationships with their significant other. They make them better people. Coaching and teachers, which ultimately coaches are, and in football, it's a sport that's very predicated on that individual making you better, right? Putting you in positions to succeed, which ultimately gets you more money, more notoriety, and makes you better. And also, part of football, especially for all the guys that come from a Division I program, but hell, we heard the way Trey Lance talked about North Dakota State. If you play at North Dakota State or you play at McNeese State or Appalachian State, it's not like they don't have really high standard. People like getting better and push. Just because I saw a quote on Instagram, it was from a coach. I'm going to butcher it, but it was basically in a competitive environment, being adversarial isn't always a negative. It's just trying to put you in trying to get you better, trying to help you improve. And I think successful people know that sometimes an uncomfortable conversation is not a bad thing. And football is an uncomfortable environment that just the simple reality, players like it. The good ones, they actually kind of yearn for. And I think most human beings, worth their salt, kind of yearn to be pushed. and yearn to just get better at whatever they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of the way we talk about sports is understandably so about money. Like, guys are showing up in part because the ones who get bonuses, but the thing that gets lost in that conversation is that for the most part, teammates like teammates. Now, I do think we overestimate it sometimes. Like, some guys don't like each other, but for the most part, most guys like hanging out with the other guys on their team. They're a very small subsection of humanity, pro athletes. There aren't that many people they can hang out with that really understand what it is that they do, what it is that they go through, the pressure that they feel, the money that they make, negative and positives that come with that, whatever their body goes through, and the basic camaraderie that comes from competition of any level. Like, forget about high-level competition. You're high-fiving some dude coming off the pickup basketball court that you'll never talk to again. Like, competition just brings people together, particularly when they're on the same team. So I think there are a lot of just basics, and especially when you add to that what the last year was like. So many meetings were on Zoom and all that kind of stuff. Now, these guys played a football season in that window, but they've been away from it. They have been away from it. And unlike, say, golf, where the season ends, like you can practice golf every day out of the year, kind of on the course the same way that you would practice if you were in the season. Football's not that way. Football,
At all.
You literally need other people, not emotionally, like physically, you need other people around. And it's one thing to go to a workout and there's 5, 15, 20 other guys. Some of them are getting ready for the draft. Some of them are getting ready for their camp. Some of them are getting ready for the CFL. Some of them are getting ready for the spring league. But everybody on the same team, pulling the same direction, kind of cheesy, but very real. And I think you said it perfectly. Here's another thing that happens. These guys are there to get better. Like, yeah, you're checking a box. Yeah, maybe you're getting a bonus. Yeah, you're there to – but also part of it is that you're there to get better with coaches who are invested year-round in making you better. So I think there's a lot of reasons for guys to show up. Somebody commented the Niners had 80, the Raiders had 70. And then you add to that what happened with the Broncos and a player getting injured away from the facility and having his contract voided. I don't think that's nothing.
I'll give you another element here. I mean, you and I don't really – we're not at the point where we're just going on these fantastic vacations all the time. Most human beings are not. I think often you see on social media when people tweet about their sweet vacations, they are anomalies even in society. The overwhelming percentage of people in America do not go on sweet vacations. Right. I mean, it's just, I think you see that with social media a lot more like, God, I'm just in Tulum again. God, just in Cancun. Like, that's not normal. Like, that's just, but if you are wealthy enough, and all these players are, if they choose to, you just hear any high level successful person, they'll go, after like a week on vacation, I kind of get bored. Like, I want back into it. These players, like, if you're not a rookie and you just don't know anybody, but if you're like a third or fourth year guy, you go, I've been off. If my team didn't make the playoffs, it's May 18th. I've been off since January 1st. Like, I've already gone to Cancun for a couple weeks. I've already trained for a little while. I went on another vacation. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And then I get a summer vacation. Like, we get a lot of time off. It's like, how much freaking time do you need? Like, and JC Treader, their whole thing was like, it's this adversarial, just kind of elements of the team versus. It's not like that. You and I have been to OTAs. They're very, very chill. I've worked in OTAs. I've been on the outside as a media member. They're cool. They're just kind of easy. And like you said, part of it is like you can't practice football, without other people. And even if you do go to the training facilities, well, if I got one guy from the Browns, I got another dude from Seattle, I got 3 dudes on my own team, a couple other guys from Alabama. Yeah, we're not all running the same thing. So it's like, at least when we're walking through, I'm going to be in the trenches, especially if you have a position coach or coordinator that you've been with a couple years. Like, you do just get to share, like, part of our relationship got accelerated once we went through everything in the radio, right? We can just relate over these issues that it's hard to really explain to other people. No different than like 2 guys right now in their facility, sitting in their position coach right now room with their guy, who last year they just had this devastating loss in a playoff. Just pick a random team. And they're just kind of bullshitting about it. Like, God, that fucking play on third down, if I hit him, or just the moment where it's like, you remember that practice last year and you just have these moments, which is fun.
You know what I think?
I think, honestly, I'm so glad. I say this all the time. My experience in football, college too, I mean, one of our buddies just got the head coaching job at Clovis West. Even the guys that didn't make the pros, but definitely the guys that make the pros, the majority of them are just pretty good blue collar. If football hadn't existed, they just would have been solid members of society. They're not these crazy like Terrell Owens in the driveway or Antonio Brown. Those guys are outliers. Most guys are just normal people that just want to work and just kind of want to get better.
You know what some of the best parts, thinking about it now, listening to you talk of Hard Knocks, is the footage in a meeting room in the 10 minutes before or after the actual meeting is beginning or ended, right? When guys are just hanging in the meeting room, chilling. Maybe they're looking at some stuff. Maybe they're talking about something. Maybe they're just BSing. That's part of what you get to do now in this part of the season.
How about some of the funny stuff, like when someone does something stupid on Instagram and they put it on the team meeting? Like, that stuff's fun for these guys. Like, you're just sitting at home. Like, these guys, the season is not for like 3 more months. It's like, we just got to grind to the season. Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to happen, and that's fun. But the thing in football, once the season happens, really the only true fun part are the games. Where in the offseason, it's much more relaxed. And you can work on your craft with just
you don't. There aren't that many other people out there like you. Your neighborhood, if you're an NFL player, is not just a cul-de-sac of other NFL players. You don't get to hang out with other NFL. Yeah, you can go to the golf club and play with other rich guys, business owners, whatever. You don't get to hang out with each other that much.
Yeah.
You don't do road trips like baseball or basketball teams do when you're just together in the same hotel for 4 days, right? You go, you come home. You don't get, I don't know. Plus, you don't. It's like this weird mix. You don't have the season about to hit, so you still got a little.
Yeah. I'm telling you,
they really miscalculated that one.
It is by far, I think, the best time in the league for a coach, for a player, for just the organization, because you're able to like throw out sweet things to the fans. Your players are all in good moods. It's just a it's a very healthy environment for the big picture part of the sport that helps you become what they've become and become really big. That's why I thought, like, say what you want about OTAs, like, I don't know if you gain that much out of them for, a team. I don't think they hurt by any means, but where they do help is they keep for about a month and a half, guys are on the field, guys are together. I'm watching the Colts. Buckner's just at the Colts. Like, he's one of their best players. He's one of the league's best players. You get these guys in press conference, you get their quotes out. It just keeps you in the circle of them just being in a good mood. That's kind of been a point of difference for the NFL, where it felt like, 10 years ago, it's like, LeBron, the NBA's coming, and then they just like lapped them by. Just the NFL is just an easy consumption, and it felt for the first time when, I didn't necessarily know that these players were going to be anti the boycott, but that was like a move, like, yeah, this is the type thing, the drip thing that people are going to be like, what are we doing?
Also, I don't know, there's a distrust perhaps with the Players Association too from some players. There've been enough things that have happened over the years where you go, are they playing checkers while the owners are playing chess?
Yeah, I also think I've never been in a union. Have you ever been in a union?
No. Just the MLBPA. But
I do think there's just in any union with this many people where I would imagine, like, I work construction. I wasn't in the union when I worked construction. It's my 1 year in college. But people that were on the construction site were a union. For the most part, everyone's in a similar wage range.
Yeah,
it's got to be really difficult when you factor in, well, how are you going to get a dude making, because money's all relative, $500K to $30 million? They're not going to have the same issues, right? They're not going to have the same thoughts on certain problems or certain ideas. Like, they're just and people who talk for the league, really Brady and Rodgers were the most outspoken the last couple of years. Like, Rodgers, like, no more OTAs. Brady this year, like, pounded the table. One thing I saw that he said was, like, they don't ask pitchers to throw 95 in the offseason. Well, Tom, the baseball season is dramatically longer than your season, and pitchers are able to train their 95 on their own pretty easily. So that's not an apples to apples argument.
How many 95s is he throwing in OTAs?
Well, and Bruce Arians, like I said it best, he didn't say Tom. He would never say that. But his point was, like, the Tom Bradys don't need to show up. We're not asking for them. But don't tell the third-round guy from 2 years ago that's fighting for a roster spot that he can't. Like, it's easy for Tom to say. It's easy for Rodgers to say. Tell the dude who's, like, 1 year, like, God, I'm not even going to be able to get a pension. I'm going to be out of the league.